Welcome to Reddit Echoes. Today it's 3 nuclear revenge stories where justice doesn't wait for the courtroom. In a village, a single thunk in the night changed the fate of an entire neighborhood. A lawyer spent 45 minutes unmasking an anonymous blackmailer and wiping out his career. A log file dragged an entire ring of fake veterinarians into the light. Watch to the end and ask yourself, when the system is jammed, do you choose silence or flip the switch yourself? Story 1. The Wooden Club in the Night and the Villain Who Went Down. Months later. My father died 20 days ago. The pain is still raw, and what I cling to are the stories he left behind. He told them so well, no sugarcoating, no detours, just bare truth and the kind of justice he believed in. This is the one I remember most. Dad was the youngest of 9 siblings, 6 older brothers, 2 older sisters, and him, the hot-headed baby of the family, blunt to a fault. At 19, he was known across the area for his temper, but people still loved him because he refused to stay silent in the face of injustice. Dad's sister, my Aunt Carly, married a soldier. Her husband was stationed on the border year-round, and she lived with his family as many women in India do. The problem wasn't that her husband was away, but his older brother, I'll call him Adam. Everyone knew he was a thug running protection rackets, bullying, extorting, and worst of all, threatening women. He was nearly 2 meters tall, built like a brick wall, and fearless in a fight. Wherever he showed up, women shut their doors. After the wedding, Adam set his sights on Aunt Carly. He tailed her, pushed her boundaries, and then brazenly tried to force her to sleep with him. Her in-laws stood like statues. No one stepped in to protect her. For weeks, she lived in fear, worn down to the point that one day she couldn't bear it anymore and whispered the whole thing to an 18-year-old nephew in the family. The boy went home, found my father, and broke down in tears. He told him everything, saying her honor and her life are hanging by a thread. My father listened, his face going pale with anger. But he knew you don't take on a mountain like Adam alone. He called a few friends and roped in several older nephews. They sat together late into the night. The plan sounded ridiculous. There was no plan. They agreed only on one thing: to beat him so badly he'd never forget it, and to send a message that from now on, if he had to pick on someone, it better not be a woman in our family. They had to choose a time when he was drunk. As evening fell, they took a few shots for courage, then headed down the village road, pitch black, thanks to sputtering electricity. The wind hissed through the bamboo hedges. Everyone clenched their fists, trying to steady their nerves. In the distance, dogs barked and a few shutters slammed as Adam's bulk loomed into view, followed by a handful of his lackeys. When he staggered around the bend, my father gave the signal. The group rushed him. 6 young men, alcohol still warm in their blood, hurled themselves at a towering hulk of meat. They'd thought he'd be pliable drunk. Turns out, even drunk, he fought like a bull. Sticks swung, curses cracked the night open, and his henchmen piled in. Suddenly, it was a full-blown brawl. In the chaos, my father grabbed a chunk of wood by the roadside, probably a broken fence post. He gripped it, took a breath, and brought it down on Adam's head. A single, dry thunk. The monster reeled. For one brief moment, the whole group saw him shrink. They didn't wait around. Someone was shouting for reinforcements, so they scattered, each man running his own way. My father went home, doused himself with water, and collapsed into sleep like a dead man. The next morning, he told my mother what happened, summing it up as a fight. Things got ugly. He hadn't even finished when my uncle burst in to say the police were looking for him. Turns out Adam made it to the hospital and gave a statement before slipping under. The family urged Dad to lie low. He holed up here a night, there a night. After a few days, he walked into the police station himself. They asked why he turned up so soon, and he said, deadpan. Everywhere I hide, the food is terrible. Can't take it. Figured I'd come here to see if the meals are any better. Whenever he told that part, he would cackle, hot-headed by reputation, yes, but still sly enough to crack a joke. The case was eventually closed. Adam didn't die right away. He lived long enough to stew in bitterness a little longer. But that blow saddled him with illness, and only a few months later, he died. When the news spread through the village, no one cried. No one cheered out loud either, but women started going to the market a little later, lingering a little longer to chat at the gates, and when night fell, laughter returned to a few courtyards. My father didn't act remorseful. He just said, "From that day on, no woman in our village got touched by him or by anyone like him again. When I grew up, I realized none of this is simple. Legally, I don't even know what the right term is. Morally, I know some will say violence doesn't solve violence. I won't argue. I just think of Aunt Carly of that dark night of the reek of liquor and that dry thunk, and of how an entire village finally exhaled after years of holding its breath. That's who my father was. Not a saint, not a villain. A man who refused to swallow injustice." He told this story many times, laughing at the part about turning himself in because the food in hiding was terrible, and going quiet at the part about no one being hurt anymore. He can't tell it now, so I'll tell it for him. If that day he had turned Adam over to the law, would anyone have dared to testify? Would my aunt have lived through the next week? I don't know. I only know one thing: in my eyes, he's still a hero with all the rough edges of a real human being. And I miss him in a way that is warm and scalding at once, as if this story is still unfolding somewhere in villages that need a "that's enough said" at exactly the right moment. Story 2. 45 minutes to shatter the anonymous mask. I'm a lawyer, and one evening my best friend called breathless and shaken. She'd sent a few private photos to a guy she thought she could trust. When she recognized the red flags and cut him off, he immediately threatened to post the photos online. His voice was full of smug confidence. He thought he was anonymous in another country and untouchable. I told her to send me everything the account name photos. He'd sent any detail that could identify him. In the first 30 minutes, I followed the breadcrumbs he'd dropped from his username to TikTok, from TikTok to an Instagram that used his real name. From there, I found a LinkedIn that matched the logo on the polo shirt he'd shown off in a photo. Even the Outlook calendar visible on his laptop screen snapped to prove he was busy reflected his full name and department. The photo of the motorcycle he flaunted for cool points gave me the license plate, which meant the registration address. He'd handed over everything himself. All I had to do was piece it together. In the next 15 minutes, I drafted a short, clean, icy email to the company's CEO, the VP of HR Operations and PR. I attached screenshots of the revenge porn threats chat excerpts showing the matching username, the uniform shirt with the company logo, the work calendar exposing internal details, plus his brag that he'd had sex at the workplace, and his invitation for my friend to come to his office for convenience. I laid it out plainly. Threatening to disseminate private content is illegal. If the company continued sending him to the U.S. on business, they should know I would forward the full file to local law enforcement, and I have a former classmate who is an assistant U.S. attorney who would be more than willing to take my call. I also informed them I would send the evidence packet to the police where he resides. My goal was simple end. The threat immediately protect my friend and shut down every avenue of denial he might try to take. Less than an hour later, HR replied confirming he'd been suspended pending investigation. By evening, another email stated his contract was terminated effective immediately and his company accounts were revoked. My friend breathed a sigh of relief. He vanished as if he'd never existed, except that his file now sat in the inboxes I'd mentioned. People say, if you want to succeed in business, you need a great accountant and an even better lawyer. I don't call myself a hero. I just think anyone who dares turn women's fear into a joke deserves to lose what they prize most: their job, their reputation, and the illusion that no one can touch them. And sometimes, justice only takes 45 minutes. Story 3. Logs don't know how to lie. The day Sophia was caught skimming cash from the register at my parents' veterinary clinic, I thought that would be the end of it. But she pulled Abe, kind so gentle he bordered on meek, into quitting with her. Half a year later, they opened a new clinic 2 towns away. Sophia and her family held 49%. A neutral investor held 5%, and Abe held 46%. Nice numbers to outsiders, a nightmare to insiders. 51% means whatever they say becomes law. 2 years went by and they started selling assets from the old company to a new legal entity they controlled for prices on paper that were practically giveaways. Abe, the one generating the revenue, suddenly became a shadow. Then a non-compete clause locked him in. He couldn't open a new clinic in the area, and he couldn't go back to my parents after the old relationship had frayed. A legitimate pivot in form, filthy in spirit. As for me, they stiffed me on payment for some web functions I'd built for them. One evening I sat with Abe. He was holding his beer with both hands like he was afraid it might slip away. We talked about the future. And then I suddenly asked, have they changed all the passwords yet? He shook his head. He was still a shareholder, at least on paper, for 2 more weeks. I logged into the email system and the admin portal. They hadn't changed them. Worse, they were sharing a single address for sensitive matters. That was the first time I only messed things up a little. 3 veterinarian applicants who'd sent in resumes all received polite but unequivocal rejection emails. The veterinary field in our country is as small as a pond. The slightest ripple spreads everywhere. Then time rolled on. Abe entered a drawn-out lawsuit. I went back to my own work and studied more about information security. One day, while cleaning my computer, I checked out of curiosity they still hadn't revoked my old access. I skimmed through the appointment logs. The name that kept repeating in the attending veterinarian field, Sophia. There were rare weeks with a relief vet, but then they'd vanish. Opening the electronic prescriptions, I saw the signature Dr. S. My blood ran cold. She wasn't just siphoning off the company. She was pretending to be a doctor. I knew I was standing on a thin legal line. I couldn't just casually send internal data to Abe. I wrote an email reporting a security vulnerability in an old module sent to a secondary address that Sophia almost never checked. A few days later, a brand new account on a tiny forum posted a data package extracts of log entries proving Sophia was listed as attending and prescribing en masse. I happened to see it in time and saved it before the mods deleted it 15 minutes later. Abe's lawyer filed a motion asking the court to order a full audit of all logs and prescriptions. Sophia panicked and deleted the entire primary database. She forgot one simple thing: the weekly automatic backups weren't stored in the same place. The backup sprang back to life brazen as a truth that can't be denied. I wasn't in the courtroom, but I can picture the judge's face when hearing the line deleted data after the court ordered production. The outcome wasn't announced immediately, but it came. Sophia faced the consequences for practicing under false pretenses and for destruction of evidence. Abe returned to my parents' clinic. The old lab coat still fit. A year later, he got a raise and a promotion. On the night the news came, he bought a bottle of rum and set it down in front of me. Cheers, he said to the people who still believe kindness deserves protection. I took a sip and thought about a simple lesson. Many powerful people forget you can own 51% of the shares, but you can't own 51% of an entire profession's conscience. And you can delete data, but you can't delete the logs. That wraps up today's 3 stories. Each one draws an uncomfortable line between retaliation and protection. Q1. Is vigilante justice justified when the victim is ignored by the entire community? Q2. Do you support taking it straight to a blackmailer's employer? Q3. Leaking data to expose professional impersonation righteous, or crossing the line? Comment C1, C2, C3, along with your take, so I can read it in the next episode. If you enjoyed true Reddit stories and those tense but satisfying Reddit stories, remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss new episodes. See you next time, where every story is a push of the That's Enough button.